I wanted to create a new version of oatmeal cookie dough macarons, and I decided what better than to add in chocolate and hazelnuts. So I'm starting with a pretty typical French meringue method for my macaron shell here. I do have some oats that are going on the top, and on the inside I'm adding in some cocoa powder. So I have my meringue whipping here, just room temperature egg whites. I'm going to stream in my sugar and cream of tartar. That's all going to be just like normal. I'm not adding in any colorant to these because I am adding cocoa powder, and that naturally is going to provide a lot of color to these macaron shells. But of course you can add in whatever colorant you want, either as the meringue is whipping, before you start whipping it, or as you add in your dry ingredients or when you macaronage. Once you get to a really stiff peak, you can then start incorporating in the dry ingredients. One super easy way to add in some cocoa powder is just to take like 3% of the weight of the almond flour and add in some sifted cocoa powder just along in addition to your dry ingredients. If you add any more than that, I do recommend taking away some of your dry ingredients to substitute in for that weight. But for me, just a couple extra grams of cocoa powder does not cause a noticeable difference. It is completely fine. So again, if you're going for 3% or less the weight of your almond flour, it is completely okay to just sift it right in there as you start incorporating in your dry ingredients. If you want to add any more than that, I do recommend taking away some of the dry ingredients to accommodate for the extra dry ingredient you are adding. However, the rest of this process is exactly like normal. I'm adding in the dry ingredients in just a couple additions, and as you can see here, even from that tiny amount of cocoa powder, I have this really lovely soft brown color in my batter. Again, if you wanted to enhance that, you can either add in a bit more cocoa powder, you can add some brown food colorant, or any other food coloring that you want. As soon as all the dry ingredients are incorporated, I'm going to fold more intentionally, pressing the batter against the sides of my mixing bowl, turning it over onto itself, using my spatula to pull through all of that batter, and then I'm going to continue mixing until I hit the ribbon stage. Depending on what works best for you in your kitchen, you may want to macaronage more or less depending on what you found suits your own personal taste and your kitchen and tools, all of that. So if you see something in my tutorial and it doesn't look exactly like yours, but your macarons are turning out amazing, don't worry about it at all. As soon as I get my macaron batter to that ribbon stage that I'm looking for, then I'm going to transfer it over into my piping bag to pipe my macaron shells. as I mentioned, I am adding some oats to the top of this shell because I am making an oatmeal cookie dough macaron. If you wanted to grind up the oats and add them into your shell, you could. If you want to leave these off entirely, you could. Or if you wanted to have the regular shells and then later add the oats as you drizzle on like chocolate or royal icing or something like that, also another option. So these macaron shells I think are really cool because with the same exact flavors and even the same exact components, there are a lot of variations you can do to make this your own and to suit whatever your needs are or whoever is going to be eating them, what they might want appearance-wise or taste-wise. So I'm piping just regular size circle shells, which I usually do when I'm going for a cookie dough filling because I want to have a little ball of the cookie dough and then I'm going to pipe several rings of buttercream around the outside of that. So this is kind of one of those fat macarons or the Korean style dunkarong. So if I have a shaped macaron or something like that, it can be a little bit more challenging to add so much filling, which is especially why I'm going for a circle, like regular macaron shell today. After tapping my tray, I am sprinkling on those oats. I did quickly just like run my knife through them so they're a little bit more chopped up. They're not completely whole oats. Depending on your taste or preferences, you can leave them whole or like super grind them up, whatever you want. I do like that adding the oats and then on top of these chocolate shells, it gives your consumer a really great visual of what to expect when they bite into this macaron shell. They already could guess it's going to have oats in it and it's going to be kind of a chocolatey macaron. So I really, really like having that appearance on the outside as well. And of course, it's going to provide some flavor and texture. I am going to let my macaron shells rest for about 20 minutes before getting them into my oven. I generally bake them for 16 to 18 minutes at 300 degrees Fahrenheit, and I do find that generally with cocoa powder added to my shells, I bake a little bit longer. I add an extra 30 seconds to a minute to whatever my norm is, so you may want to do the same. Now on to the cookie dough. So because this is an edible raw cookie dough, one important step is to heat treat the flour. And while I am heat treating the flour, I'm also going to start roasting my hazelnuts. I am just starting with regular whole hazelnuts, and then I am going to chop those up into tiny little pieces, and then I'm ready to go with my cookie dough. I'm starting just like any cookie dough. I have butter, 2 different kinds of sugar, and some vanilla, and I'm creaming that up until it is really nice and thoroughly combined. Because we are not baking this, you do not need to worry about over mixing or anything like that. So honestly, have zero stress in making this, just let it go. Next, I am adding in that heat treated flour. At first, it might look a little bit weird, but I promise it is the right ratio. It will come together here. And as soon as that is incorporated, I'm going to add in the oats, followed by the other additions of the chocolate chips and the hazelnuts. And this, at this stage here, it really depends on your personal preference. Know that the inside the macaron, you're going to have a tiny little ball of the cookie dough. And so you really want to make sure you have enough of all of the flavors you want, the oats, the chocolate, the hazelnut, so that every little ball of dough is completely chock full of all of those things. So if you were baking this, it would be okay if they had a little bit more distance and would spread out. But for this, you really want a high ratio of the flavorings to the dough. The very last thing I'm going to do for a buttercream, I'm making a hazelnut praline buttercream. So I just had a homemade hazelnut praline paste. You can buy that. You can just add hazelnut paste. You could have a regular vanilla buttercream. You could do a chocolate buttercream, whatever you want to pair this macaron with would be delicious. There are a ton of options for flavor combinations here. Then, as I mentioned, I'm just putting one little ball of cookie dough right in the center of my macaron shell. Then I do have a piping tip on my buttercream bag there just to make sure that it looks really smooth, and I have this one perfect kind of looping ring of buttercream around the outside, and I'm just going to go around and around and around until the buttercream reaches the top of where the cookie dough hits. So when I sandwich the macarons, the buttercream is going to be the glue. So if the buttercream doesn't reach the top of the cookie dough, it's not going to stick together very well as a final macaron. If you do not like this amount of filling, which I guess I can understand, but also who doesn't want to eat this much cookie dough is beyond me. Anyway, you absolutely can add a really tiny amount of cookie dough and then just pipe one single ring of buttercream. That's absolutely okay. Or if that also is not your cup of tea, or if you're not a buttercream person, you can add more butter to the cookie dough and make basically like a pipeable cookie dough, and then only use that in your macarons. It's not an option I do much, but it is something you can try if you want to. These will mature like normal, though I generally find that buttercream filled macarons, especially tunkarongs, might take a little bit longer to mature than normal, so you might want to give these a solid 48 hours before diving in there. Otherwise, they're ready to eat. Look at how amazing they are. Oh my gosh, I wish I had one in front of me right now. They were so delicious. I really hope you give them a try. If you do, let me know. Tag me on Instagram at Maddie Brame. I love seeing all of your creations and what you make inspired by something that I made. All right, until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.